To you live. So exciting to be having this conversation.
StreamYard is always amazing because we got to go live on multiple platforms and they don't all catch up at the same time. So you got to do
And,
a dance. You set it dun, dun, dun.
but here we are again talking about this. We have 1 week to go. Today, for the first time, it actually hit me that it's coming out in a week, and I started freaking out. I was pacing in the yard and I was like, what have I done? What have I done?
Listen, I mean, the last book you spent like 6 months like that. So like 1 week is like nothing, man.
It finally, so I had gotten this message this morning. So I have some beta readers for the book that they've agreed to be my launch team. So in advance of it coming out, they read the book and they have a review prepared to put on Amazon. This woman sent me a review that's like, it's the most beautiful thing. I mean, the one of the things that she said that was the most moving was that by reading the book, she feels supported and inspired to share her story. This has always been the goal for me, right? I'm supporting other writers to write. Right before this call, I had a conversation with this woman who's amazing, like amazing. And she did what I did for a long time, which is write, speak, coach from a place of her professional knowledge and her professional expertise, keeping her personal story hidden in the background. And she feels called now to also bring forth her personal story so that people know her journey of how she got to where she is. And that's something that is this constant pattern. I did it myself. I support other people to do it. More and more people are coming forward. And one of the things that I emphasized to her was that I was very fearful that by sharing my story, there would be less opportunities, right? There would, right? Like how all the thing, it would be so catastrophic, which is like an irrational fear that a lot of us carry. And I explained to her, like, no, once you do this, you're more vibrant, you're more attractive, there's more opportunities, there's more impact, that it's not a less, it's a more. And she was feeling into that. I think it continues to be reassuring when I tell people that, and then I get it in these messages. I want to write a book because you wrote a book. Great, you know.
Well, and I think in the difference of this, of like, I want to write a book because you wrote a book, they're not trying to write your book. They're trying to write their book, right? Like, so many times as a coach, I think you end up with people that are like, I want to build what you built. And you're like, you can't build what I built because it's you and not me. And like, that's different, right? And whereas the book piece of it is like, they're going to tell their story, and it's so much more satisfying in that way. And that space of like, where you're like, oh yeah, let's pull your story out, not I'm trying to recreate what you created.
Yeah. And that's what we were talking about. She was saying, she asked me a couple of really poignant questions, like one of them was, I don't want to say that there's like a recipe for doing what I did. I want to tell them my story and then help them to, find their own way forward. And that is very much the intention when I write my story as well. The other thing that she said is, did you find as you were writing about healing as part of your journey that you started to attract a lot of broken people or victim people? And I said, no. I said, it depends on who you're writing to and how you're writing, what you're writing, whether or not you make people feel worse or better when they read your book, right? Do they resonate like, I'm broken, must contact Gabby? Or do they say, wow, there's such a wholeness there. There's such a journey there. I'm inspired to find my own wholeness, right? And then do they reach out with that kind of intent? And that is largely due to the way that you write and who you're writing to in your mind when you're putting the words on the page.
Yeah, and like there's always going to be a spectrum, right? Like there's always going to be like some people that might be at the beginning of that journey, and then there's some more people that are like gone through it and they're like, oh, I resonate completely with this and I want to share mine. And like, and all those pieces are super important, and the ability to be able to like step a little further into it, right? Because like I think that there's so many times people have this idea of like, I'm just gonna go write a book, like I'm gonna write a book in 3 months.
1 hour.
No, 1 hour. Like like they're gonna like take this, unless you have a bunch of stuff you've been writing that you're like putting, like you might be like compilating a book in,
Yeah.
that amount of time, but you're not going to ever be able to be like, you know, 3 months and now it's like out into the world. And this idea of like the growth that it takes and the growth that it's like the thing that it's there for. That's part of the journey of doing it is doing it.
I feel like I should read like some of the part in the beginning when like my memoir started downloading to me and I was
Yes.
like, God damn it, I don't want to write this. I feel like people would resonate with that. Do you remember how I called you from LA because I had gotten that other job and you were like, "Do you want the job?" And I was like, "No, I want to finish my book." And you're like, "Well, then would you please finish the book?"
That might be truth, yes. No, I mean, when you did do that, it was like hilarious because it was like the searching for your like next job was just so useless.
Okay, so I'll read this
No.
section. This is after this is like early 2020. A month passed, then another. I moved from my friend's apartment to an Airbnb. I tried yoga and self-hypnosis and Lexapro and Buspirone. I applied for jobs. I had interviews. I went to church in Beverly Hills. I cried so hard I had to go to the restroom 6 times to blow my nose and splash cold water on my face. I cried like every bone in my body was breaking. I cried like Mother Mary kneeling at the foot of the cross, trying to bring her dead son back to life. Why can't I fix this? I howled. One day when Valentine hearts had been replaced by green shamrocks in store windows, I heard a calm, quiet voice in my head say, "The first time I felt the fire, I was 3 years old." My stomach tightened, tears rolled down my cheeks and collected in my palms as I covered my face with my hands. I knew exactly what the words meant. They hit me like the arrival of an old friend. I didn't want to hear them. I didn't want to acknowledge what they beckoned me to do. I pleaded with an invisible higher power. Is there any other way? More words dropped in. I was a tiny little thing who loved to wear Mickey Mouse ears and rhinestone tiaras. God damn it, I spit. I had been hearing my memoir narrated in my head for more than 12 years. There was a 2007 version, a 2013 version, and in 2020, I was hearing it for the 3rd time. The narration changed slightly, but often the phrases were the same. On a few occasions, I transcribed the story as it came to me. There were few things I wanted less than to tell my story. Right? Like, I was like, oh, why is this happening?
And the best part about it is like another point when you were like, okay, I'm going to put this out, right? Like in 2018-ish, whatever, that you were like, and oh, I have to scrap that book and like basically start again. And that space of like, it's coming in and I have to do it. Like
I'm hoping that
interesting.
when people read this book, I'm hoping it accelerates their process a little bit because I never, in all the memoirs I had been reading and all the writers I had been following and all the workshops I had been going to, there wasn't really like a mentor or somebody who said to me, like, this is what the journey looks and feels like. Be aware of these signs, know that it's part of it. I had heard a little bit about resistance and I had heard a little bit about the inner critic, but for this kind of relationship that you have with your creativity or that you have with your writing, I think this book gives a lot of insight into what that looks and feels like that will hopefully like help others kind of move through some of that a little bit faster and also feel inspired and hopeful that it's worth it and that when they get to the end, right,
Yeah.
they're gonna have become a different person on the other side. So I hope that it does that. And Tara mentioned that in her testimonial this morning.
Yeah, when I started reading it, I was like, oh, it has these like essence of Big Magic. It has some essence of the Surrender Experiment and some of Wild, right? Like there's these like pieces of them that like have these parts that remind me of it, but a lot of it is that where it's like, hey, this part isn't like, super easy, and this part isn't like you're supposed to be like cursing at the gods, right? You're supposed to be like you're in the right spot, like when you like also know that you're like, oh, I could have this new fancy job and do the thing and whatever, but no, you're gonna sit and be mostly alone writing this thing that's going to be like tearing you apart, right? Like, and this like space of understanding like that it travels somewhere to get somewhere, right?
I
And
think
that
it's
is part
also
of the
like
process.
the collective experience. You know what I mean? Like so many of the themes that I'm talking about in this, like so many of the challenges are they're common. Like
No,
people,
yeah.
I'm not the only one who's facing like generational trauma or like what's my purpose or like these are things that are shared experience, you know? And I think also me naming some of them can help other people to recognize how it's influencing their own life, you know?
And I think that in the knowing of it, it's like not only in just the book writing, right? It's like it's such a like in any creative experience, in any getting to know you, in any like knowing your real self, like all of those things are always present. And how you respond to them, like it's always so interesting that people talk about like midlife crisis or whatever, right? And it's like it's such a universal experience, but yet it's like someone's going crazy. And it's like, well, is everybody going crazy? Like, is this the like, or is it like the people that are paying attention are like trying to see who they really are?
Yeah. 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 I never had these kinds of conversations. I mean, I lost both my parents before I could even have these conversations with them. Like my mom died at 52, my dad died at 62. Like my grandparents were they were like in their 90s or whatever. Like I missed that relationship where like you could talk through some of these things with the people that are like the next generation above you. And I think we're navigating it in a totally different way. I don't think my parents would have been navigating it with ayahuasca and mushrooms.
No, I don't think so either.
So we're also, traveling this path with like new medicines and new technology and, what does it mean to be in middle age now as, compared to what it was like 20 or 30 years ago. It's a new journey,
And like with the invention of the internet, there's like so much more like the ability to be like, oh, let me just find my people, right? Like it's like because you're no longer just trying to find them in your town or your city, right? You're like, I have the entire world. Oh, look at these humans that are just like me, right? And the ability to be like, it's also a really shared experience, right? This idea of like, huh, I want to have some reflection of my life and like, and also like figure out what I want to do going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have one more week.
You have a book coming out in 1 week.
We have one more week. And then hopefully we'll hear from all the beautiful people what their experience was. Maybe they'll share some additional questions and stuff that we can explore. But yeah. I'm gonna hold my breath for the next couple of days and see what happens.
Maybe book number 3 will start coming in.
Well, I mean, I told you it's been percolating. It hasn't come in its full formation. It's still just kind of in these little whispers. It has by this time after the first book, this whole book had already dropped in. By the time All This Healing Killing Me was uploaded on Amazon, this whole thing was already like whoosh, like in my body. So I'm not quite there yet. But there is percolations of the next book. So we'll see what happens. Well, thanks for joining us today, you guys. Countdown continues to the last ceremony. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.